Welcome to Daily News Weekly, where we highlight the stories from the past week that you might have missed. I'm your host, Michael Sheridan. So, when is a finger considered dangerous? When you hold it like this. That seems to be the position taken by authorities in Kansas City, where a 13-year-old girl was arrested after pointing her fingers like this at several students while at her school. According to the Kansas City Star, the 8th grader was arrested after a school investigation found she was talking with another student. When that student asked her if she could pick 5 students to kill, who would they be? That's when she allegedly held her hand like a gun and then pointed at different students in the room. Now, according to the report, the student who was talking to the 13-year-old, as well as several of the kids who got pointed at, reported the incident. This led the 13-year-old to be arrested and charged with threatening, which is considered a felony. Her mother tells the Kansas City Star that the girl is a well-behaved girl and doesn't believe in guns, believes in gun control, and that the family has no guns in the house. She also says that her daughter was routinely bullied by the very people she pointed out in the incident. Now, to put this in a broader context, in the same school district in Kansas City, 2 kids were arrested for bringing guns to school in their backpack. They had handguns in their backpack. And they only faced misdemeanor charges because authorities didn't believe they actually intended to use the guns. But a girl who only did this with her hand in school is facing a more severe charge. Now, school officials say that they needed to take this seriously because school shootings are a reality, and they worry that there's always the argument that signs were ignored before an incident, and this is a way of clamping down on that kind of behavior. At the same time, there are those who are arguing this is a case of overreaction and zero tolerance taken too far, where an innocent action is being twisted into something more violent. But what do you think? Were school officials right? Were authorities right to charge this girl? Or is this going too far? Heroism, true heroism, is when you put yourself at risk for someone else. This is Utah Highway Patrol Trooper Ruben Carrera. Earlier this week, he spotted an SUV sitting on some railroad tracks, and when he raced over to see what was going on, he discovered a man inside unconscious. That's when he also noticed a train was speeding towards them. I actually wasn't really thinking. I was just doing my job, and my main concern was getting him out of the vehicle. The entire incident was captured on the trooper's dash cam. Watch. Trooper, you, sir, are our hero of the week. So last week we talked about a story where a Florida judge is under fire for his really extreme sentencing of a 21-year-old who missed jury duty because he overslept. The judge is white, the juror is black. There were a lot of calls and claims about racism, and it raised a lot of questions, and that judge's future on the bench is in question. Nancy Malkmus Bazakalupo, I totally butchered that and I'm sorry, on Facebook wrote, in reference to the harsh sentence for the young man missing jury duty, I think a small fine and community service would have sufficed. Leanna Harrow on Facebook said, that's way more than excessive. And Lord Vader on YouTube noted, harsh punishment was too much. That was pretty much the sentiment in almost all the comments. Almost every comment was about that story. And everybody seemed to pretty significantly argue that the sentencing was too extreme. And I have to agree, it was too extreme. And there's not a lot of evidence to support the idea that he was even-handedly applying this to other people, and it's very much in question whether or not he's going to remain as a judge, because local politicians there now want him to be booted, as well as many others. So we'll stay tuned on that story and see what happens. A Swiss scientist who just won the Nobel Prize for Physics thinks it is highly doubtful that the human race will ever leave the solar system. And this very idea makes the sci-fi geek in me thoroughly depressed. Michael Mayer, along with a colleague, received the Nobel Prize for Physics last Tuesday for research related to detecting exoplanets. However, Mayer argues that it's highly unlikely, at least given existing technology, that humans would ever journey out far enough to visit one of these exoplanets. I mean, using Mayer's logic, actually traveling within our own solar system would take years based on current technological abilities. So the idea that we'd actually be able to leave the solar system and go to another solar system, you're talking years, if not potentially a decade or more, just to travel that kind of distance. So it isn't really feasible to think that we would ever be able to leave the solar system, let alone choose to. So why is he being such a sci-fi Debbie Downer? I think it's really because he thinks we should be paying more attention to taking care of the planet we live on. If we act as if somehow we can ruin this planet and just hop off to another planet and be okay, is foolish. We should focus our time and energies on taking care of the planet we live on and not ruining it. And I think that's largely what he's arguing here. Personally, I want to actually believe that we will someday explore new worlds and seek out new civilizations. Now, this kind of sounds like the setup for a horror movie, or perhaps a sitcom. But a family of 6 was recently discovered hiding away in a farm in Europe, waiting for the end of days. According to local reports, the family of 5 siblings and their father were hiding out on an isolated property in the Netherlands. The siblings living in the house range in age from 18 to 25, and they were discovered after the oldest apparently went to a local bar, had a couple of beers, and then decided he didn't want to go back and told authorities what had happened to him. When those authorities arrived at the house, they discovered a secret entrance under the stairs that led to a basement, which is apparently where the family had been hiding out. And apparently they'd been hiding out there for nearly a decade. Now, the details of their life there and what exactly is going on are still largely unclear. It is believed that the father was there, but he had suffered a stroke at some point or another and needed to be taken care of. It is unclear what happened to the mother, but it is believed that she possibly died years ago. Now, I'm saying all this story, and then I'm going to throw this addendum on there that a lot of this could turn out to be not true. It sounds really bizarre. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it does sound a little strange. The oldest did apparently have social media accounts. He was on Facebook, he was on Twitter, he was even on LinkedIn. But apparently a lot of it hadn't really been active or terribly active over the past few years. And truthfully, when you post things on certain websites, the date can be fudged. So it's not really clear when anything he did online, like for Facebook, was actually posted. So there's a part of me that feels like this is all a gag of some kind. Plus, all the kids are old. It's like I could have maybe bought into it a little bit more if the kids were younger. But I feel like because they're older, it makes it all seems a little more suspicious. All that being said, it could very well all be true. They may really have been living there for as like 9 years. They may have really been thinking that the end of times were coming, but it all sounds a little too good to be true. What do you think? Do you buy this story, or do we really need to wait longer for more details to come out? And cut. That's it, everybody. We are done for this week's episode. Thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below. And if you have any comments to make about this week's story or anything else about this episode, please leave them in the comments section below. And we look forward to talking about your comments next week and finding a whole new batch of stories to share with you on another episode of Disney News Weekly.